The variation stitches in this video are all worked on a Cretan stitch, so just a quick refresher. Bringing my thread up, and we're working between two lines if you need a visual. I'm just doing it freehand. I go up to the top, take a stitch back down toward the bottom. I want the thread under the needle and pull through. And then I'm going to come down to the bottom, take a stitch up toward the middle, threads under the needle, and pull through. And I'm just going to keep doing that, and I'm coming up at an angle the next time. So I want my thread here in the middle to angle, so I'm going to come up here, go down, take a stitch down toward the middle, so a vertical stitch, then over, and take a stitch up from the bottom towards the middle. It's also a vertical stitch. And just keep working that however long you want this to be. For our first combination, after we've worked the Cretan stitch, going to come back and work a cluster of 5 lazy daisies on every other vertical stitch. So for spacing, I think it's easier to come in and put 3, so 2 hanging off at an angle over that vertical stitch. And then my vertical one, and come back and add 2 here between the vertical and the one that's draping over the edge, so 1 on each side to get our 5. And then I'm just going to bounce down to the bottom or the other side. I guess it could be the top. I've skipped one here, so 5 lazy daisies in here. And if you want them to all be the same, you could make little marks. I'd just do a line with chalk for where you wanted the lazy daisies to be. I kind of missed my spot there. So again, it's just 5 on every other one. Or do whatever makes you happy. I mean, it'll be your work, so always feel free to modify these. Okay, so you can see how it's looking. I would skip these 2 and come down and do this one, and I actually don't have another vertical one here. On the vertical stitches we left empty, we're going to come back and put 2 straight stitches coming in at an angle, so technically that would make it an arrowhead stitch. So you can decide how big you want that to be. And I'm just coming in to that vertical stitch, hopefully in the same hole where that stitch came up. So that's our little straight stitches or arrowhead stitch. We're just doing a single one if that's what it is. The last thing we're doing on this combination is coming back and adding a French knot or a colonial knot in the center of our clusters of lazy daisies, and then also there at the base of that arrowhead stitch. I was having a hard time getting the needle through on the French knot on my first one, so I wanted to show you a product. These are called needle pullers. And what it is it's plastic rubber cover for your thumb, and you can also wear it on your forefinger if you want, and it will help you grip the needle and pull it through a little easier. So I just wanted you to know they were available. This brand, they come 2 in a pack. We recently got in some new ones that come in different sizes that extend over your finger a little further, so you might want to check those out. At the end of my product placement, so I'm doing 3 wrap French knots. I'm just coming up in the center of that group of lazy daisies. Doing my 3 wraps, back down. And then I just bounce over the next one. And you could weave your thread into the stitches on the back. This is just a sample. It's not going anywhere in particular. You wouldn't have to do 3 wrap on all of them. You could make some of them 1 wrap or 2 wrap and the others 3. It's completely up to you. Because it kind of overpowers my... So let's see what a 2 wrap one would look like. Arrowhead stitches is what I was going to say. So you might want to go a little smaller on those. Depends on how big you made your arrowhead stitches. So there's our first combination. For the next combination, we work our Cretan stitch for the base, and then we come back, and at the inside point of each of the vertical stitches, we're going to put 2 lazy daisies, 1 on each side. And you are welcome to play with your length. I'm making them pretty close to as tall as that vertical stitch. And it's on both sides of it, so then once I've done that one, I just drop down to the other side and do the same thing. So I'm just doing one lazy daisy on each side of that vertical stitch, and I'm putting them in at an angle. It's up to you how steep of an angle you want to, and it's also going to depend on how wide you made your Cretan stitch. So we're just going to continue that process all the way across. To finish off this combination, we're going to do clusters of 3 French knots or colonial knots at the end of each of our vertical stitches, the opposite end from where we started our lazy daisies. So I'm doing 3 wrap ones. And the way the card shows it is with a triangle with 1 point sitting on the end of that vertical stitch. You could flip them over the other way and have the triangle with the point at the top. And it's on every single one of those. This would be really pretty with variegated thread. I'm just using a solid pink though. I did use 2 different colors. I used 1 color of green for my chevron and then a lighter color for the lazy daisy. So, oops, 1, 2, 3. So we're just going to continue on and finish that row of French knots. For our final Cretan stitch combination, we're going to start exactly like we did for the first combination. We make our base Cretan stitch, and then we're going to come back and on every other one do a group of 5 lazy daisies. So I'll do one group, but you saw it in that first part, so waste your time. There isn't going to be any French knot in the center, so you may want to pay a little more attention to getting your centers neat. It's just going to be finished with just the lazy daisies. Obviously, you can go back and add your French knots or colonial knots if you want to. I like to do it in groups of lazy daisies because it kind of hides that center if everything wasn't perfect. Okay, and after I finish this one, then I will bounce down to this one on the bottom. There's going to be a blank one between the 2 flowers. That one stays empty, and then that one gets the group of 5 lazy daisies. Okay, to finish this combination off, we're going to come back on all of our empty vertical stitches. We're going to put a lazy daisy on the end. So that's kind of just extending that vertical stitch. And then we're going to put straight stitches on each side of that lazy daisy coming into the same point. So really this is basically an arrowhead stitch again. And then we're going to do just another set of straight stitches below that coming in part way where it meets on that vertical stitch. I'm actually not piercing the thread. You could if you wanted to. I'm sort of going under it. And then we bounce over, do the same thing on the one on the other side. So just a lazy daisy coming vertically right out of the top of that vertical stitch. And then 2 straight stitches or an arrowhead stitch, same thing. And 2 more straight stitches below that, trying to keep the angle about the same. And continue on until you've filled all those empty vertical stitches. That is our 3rd Cretan stitch variation. Those are our 3 combinations we did this time using the Cretan stitch. Feel free to play with your colors, spacing, whatever, and make it your own.